So we're going to talk about Leo through the houses. So wherever Leo is in the chart is important to see areas of your life where you could a show your talent, show your confidence, show what you're proud of, where you might be generous, or areas of your life where you just might, feel that you're the most successful. It's a lot easier if somebody has Leo in the third house to express their ideas, perhaps. Now, again, what we have to also understand is it depends on what's in there. Okay. If someone has Mercury and Leo in the third house, but they also have Chiron there, there's going to be some difficulties perhaps with feeling confident and expressing what you already know. Now, as opposed to the other fire signs, Aries is more, we know with Aries energy, we're dealing more with that Mars action oriented approach. With Aries energy, it's less reliant on the need to be seen, though it is more reliant on the need to have the freedom to do what it needs to do. Okay. And we obviously know with Sagittarius, we now have more of a thought process going on with Sagittarius, where there is a need to experience what they believe or the truth or what they view as the truth and then have it come out. So Leo as a fixed fire sign is more reliant on being perceived and seen for what it has, and wanting to get praise and give praise. I think we also sometimes misunderstand the energy of Leo, where we can say, oh, Leo just wants attention, but I have seen Leo energy people give attention as well and praise other people, and it's kind of like a happy Leo wants to make everybody happy. An unhappy Leo, well, you can guess what might happen there. So wherever Leo is in your chart can show that area of where you might shine or where you may have the ability to do something to show your confidence, or an area of your life where you might find like you're a little bit more pushy about what you're good at, or you're a little bit more confident, or you're a little bit more in need. Sometimes Leo energy can be more in need of being seen in a certain way, especially if someone has a planet that's afflicted, right? You have a bad aspect to a planet that's in Leo in a certain house, well, then you can see a person who has issues with confidence, who maybe needs too much indulgence in themselves, right? So, and again, if you don't have a planet in that house, you just look at the cusp, okay? You Leo on the cusp of the second house, all right, great. You can interpret that, and you want to take it a step further, which most of us will want to do. Well, the sun rules Leo. So if you have an empty house with Leos on the cusp, you're going to look at what planet rules where the sun is in your chart to see a connection between those houses. Now, well, if Leo's in the first house, ideally, obviously, you're more than likely perhaps a Leo rising. Now, maybe not, because if you use Placidus, you could be a Leo rising, maybe a Virgo in the second house. Either way, in general, we're dealing with here with Leo. Well, when Leo's in the first house, you have to understand this could be a person who is more of a performer, or who is you're going to see more of a streak of a person who is willing to want to get attention for what their actions are. Leo, it's less of the fifth house energy, where the fifth house energy, you could see more of a concentration of the talent, of their abilities, of their confidence, of what it is this person embodies. The fifth house, where you might also see a person that has that humor element to them. Leo energy in general can sometimes have that humor, that fun, because remember, Leo is linked to children, right? And so sometimes you can see more of that. Now, whereas that's not an Aries video. Aries can be more of that child energy as well, but it's more of that impulse, that trying something out. So when Leo's on the cusp of the first house, the person is a little bit more, it might be a little bit more impulsive or dominant in their assertion of self. There's more of a need to be seen. Now, especially if that Leo rising has planets in Leo in that first house, and Mercury, let's say they have Mercury. Well, there's more of a need to assert the self. You need to notice me. It's interesting because Leo becomes a little bit less about just look at what I can do. Just look at what I look at what I have, or look how great I am. It becomes more about the assertion of self, and this becomes a part of the identity. Now, what we want to watch for, if that is extreme, is we already know that Leo energy can be a bit extreme sometimes, okay? It can go to, and all the fire signs in a way can kind of have that very overwhelming type of energy. And I say this as someone who, again, like I said, I got 2 Leo placements, but they're in water houses. So water kind of subdues the fire in a lot of people. But what we're noticing here is that the Leo rising person can sometimes have a very big presence, and there's more of a desire to be noticed and seen and to assert the self and say, like, this is who I am, through the lens of wanting other people to see that as well. And so it becomes a little bit different there because it's not the Leo sun where it just projects, right? If we're dealing with our rising sign and what people actually are noticing, if we're dealing with the rising sign of what you are trying to embody or what you embody consciously or unconsciously, depending on the person, it can be more of it's going to be a noticeable rising sign. You have Leo in the first house, Cusp. If you are a Leo rising, I have a whole video about risings. I'm not going to go into a rising conversation right now. It's going to be noticeable, but that Leo rising energy is different than the sun, because that's where you can see a person that is a little bit more even impulsive than the Leo sun in person. The Leo sun person, if they have Leo and the sun is in the 8th house or 5th house or 6th house or whatever, as opposed to Leo rising on the cusp of the 1st house, which we've already taught. I already have a video about the 1st house if you want to check that out. It's going to be a little bit more. This is where you can get, this is why I tell people all the time, the sun is not the rising. The sun is not the rising sign, because the sun is, I'm conscious, I'm showing the certain things. I'm going to be conscious of this. This is what I'm deliberately doing. Whereas your rising sign, if we look at it, it's on the Mars. It's your action, but we have to understand that Mars is instinctual. You're not thinking, like sometimes when you do things, Mars has to just act. It's not a thinking. It's not a feeling planet. Therefore, if Mars is in charge of our 1st house, Mars is an instinctual energy. That is why sometimes the rising is not a consciousness that you're thinking about. So that's just one thing to keep in mind, where sometimes Leo rising person can have more energy than Leo's sun. This is the person that might be more of a performer. Maybe even there's a physical performance to this individual, because we know the 1st house can be associated with body. And again, that Mars energy that flows to the 1st house. So this person tends to be a little bit more active, maybe a little bit more impulsive, maybe a little bit more like notice what I have, notice me, notice what I'm doing, and notice it in a way in which they're commanding that respect. I feel like Leo and sons expect it. I'm saying the sun and the rising are not exactly the same thing. So we want to be careful when we're talking about the sun versus the rising sign. They're not the same. Now, if you are the same sun and rising, then that's a different conversation. Now we move into the 2nd house, which is obviously, now we're not talking about self and identity and assertion. The 2nd house is of money and values. Well, of course, if you have Leo on the cusp, there tends to be a want for a nice lifestyle, wanting, being generous with your own money, perhaps, wanting to have nice things, wanting to have nice items. So Leo there also maybe wanting to make money off of what you're good at. And here's where we can get more of an earth quality. Obviously, this is an earth house. So by making money off what they're good at, you could see a situation where a person is like, I'm really good at this. I want to make money off it. And they're just really relentless, because remember, the 2nd house is a fixed house and Leo is a fixed sign. So if you did have a person like that, the Leo in the 2nd house can tend to mean that. Can sometimes mean spending money excessively. Now, we would look at what's in there. You could look at any degrees and things like that to see, like, is it a problem though? A lot of people can spend money, but they have it. Or are you spending money and you don't really have it, and you really should be, preserving what you have. So that Leo on the cusp of the 2nd house is allowed to, it wants to have a little bit more freedom, and it can be really generous, but also wants to have a lot of nice things, can overspend, can be quite generous with other people, especially. We would have to look at the rest of the chart to see what the person's relationship is with people, to see, is this a Leo cusp person on the 2nd house that just spends on themselves, or do they spend on other people? Okay, look, they have Jupiter and Leo as well in the 6th house, but maybe they're very generous. So Leo in the 3rd house. Well, you have pride over your ideas. And sometimes, we have to remember the 3rd house is supposed to be, it's supposed to be objective. So if we have Leo in the 3rd house, what ends up happening here is actually Leo just thinks it knows what it knows. Like, I know this already. I already know. And this is what it is. And that can be good for confidence. That can be good for a person who doesn't let other people sway their opinions. That could be good because sometimes we can become too influenced by what the news says or something new. We could be you thought this and now this. And having a fixed sign somewhere shows that you're really trying to hold down what you already have decided. And with Leo being on the third house cusp, it also could be a person who's very expressive in how they speak. There can be a jovial nature to how they say things. So it could come off also as a person who, the confidence layer would also have just be fun. This is where you also could see a person who's inviting. Sometimes Leo energy is inviting. If the Leo person is happy, it's going to radiate in how they speak to you and how they deal with you and how they treat you. So typically here you're going to see Leo in that regard. Tends to be could be self-important in opinion, especially if we understand like sibling energy can be the third house, or the third house starts the sibling energy. It gives like a narrative of your siblings. Obviously, we know there's other ways you can see siblings in a chart. There's multiple ways you could do that. But Leo in the third house, it's good for a person that maybe even is expressive in terms of like their career, where they have to perform or they have to use their words, that they have to write. Leo energy means you could also get some attention for that because it's coming off in such a confident way, and sometimes it's coming off in such an inviting way. People can be drawn to confidence, right? So Leo in the fourth house. So again, if you have Leo in the fourth house energy, or if there's a cusp energy or something like that, could be a person who just in the home, there is you might be noticed or seen for some reason. You're the one that's doted on, or you're the one that's spoiled, or you're the one that you feel like is just given maybe more. And what I mean by that is, you can see a person who's like, well, I was on the fourth house cusp, and like my parents invested a lot in me, and I was always expected to do well, and I was always praised, or whatever the case may be. Now, again, depending on what's in the chart as well, we could be dealing with a person who is in their family. You think you're self-important, or you've noticed that you stand out in some way. Especially it's very similar to Sun in the fourth house. You're going to stand out. You could even be the one, maybe you stand out because you make more money than everyone else down the road, and like everyone comes to you for money, because Leo can also be this sign that wants everyone to kind of feel as happy as it does. Now, again, I have a whole shadow video about each sign, so we're not saying every Leo is happy. That's not true at all. If you've lived long enough, you've seen many different people in your life, and you have many different examples. Depending on how old you are, you've probably seen a lot. Once you get to a certain point, you realize like, that's why I did the shadow side video, because once you get to a certain point in life, you've seen like a range of things, and we have to be able to pick up on traits when we see them. And so with that said, sometimes it could be a person who, is very self-involved, is very important, like in the family, wants to be the most important person, has had a lot of experiences of not feeling like you had enough attention. Let's say that person has Leo on the cusp of the fourth house, then they have Chiron and Cancer in the eighth house. Well, actually, when the astrologer interprets that, you now have to look at the fact that maybe this Leo energy in the fourth house shows what they want, what they emotionally needed, and they don't really have that connection with their family, and now they're seeking it out in other ways. So, there could be that. Also, anytime you have the fire sign, some certain signs or certain planets in the fourth house, you can get an overly positive opinion of emotions, where there can be, you're not really dealing with the harder ones. You're not really confronting the harder emotions. You're not really acknowledging the harder emotions that might be good for you to interpret and analyze. Now, Leo in the fifth house, we know the sun rules the fifth house, and Leo has no problem being in that fifth house. It feels at home. It can kick back and relax. So there you're going to see a person who's kind of already aware of their talent, I would say. You know how sometimes some people are like, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know, my brother does this, my family does this, and I just don't know where I am. Typically, that's not what you're going to see here. You're going to see a person who's already known from a young age what they wanted or what they wanted to do. Now, if that is not the case, again, exceptions to the rule means there's something else going on in the chart that this person might have confidence issues. But typically, Leo being there also for some people could indicate there's a connection to children, because Leo is a sign associated with children. And the fifth house is the house of children. Now, again, there's many ways you can look at children in the fifth house, and I explained that, I think, in one video. But there's different ways. We're not talking about the different ways, but if you see Leo on the cusp, that could mean a person who wants, will have them. Then we could go further and obviously look at other planets in that fifth house, because that's going to give you another layer to that. So with the fifth house and Leo individual, probably, it's a very fixed energy. It matches up, and also it's about this person has a excessive amount of pride. Especially, let's say we have Mars and Leo in the fifth house. This person is a go-getter, like they know what they want. And what's interesting about Leo in the fifth house in general is it is this place of fun, like it is this lighthearted place, but it's also a place where you feel the most comfortable because you are more in tune with what you are. And the fifth house, remember I said, some people can make money off the fifth house, some people do. you have to look at what's in there. However, it is not the 11th house. It's not the 3rd house. It's not the 7th house. It's not the 9th. You're not really focusing on other people in the 5th house. If you have Venus there, yes, perhaps. If you have other placements, if you Libra energy, Moon in Libra, yeah, we start to involve other people in like what brings you fun, what brings you joy. But for the most part, it's about you. And so when someone does have Leo in the 5th house cusp, that does tend to mean a person who is very fine-tuned to what they're good at. There's pretty much usually a positive layer of understanding who they are or what they are. So confidence it might be action that's the issue. So maybe they have something going on, maybe they're rising sign or something like that, or maybe they have certain degrees within the chart, something of that nature. There could be other problems, but typically there's a confident layer there. Now, what we'd have to do is we'd have to look at the sun, because it was the sun at. How is this person's sun in the 8th house? Well, now we have to interpret that as they're confident, but they're not bossy, they're not over pushy, or maybe they're just more introspective. They're more selective about when they show their confidence, perhaps, but they still have it. So we have to look at where that sun is. If you have Leo in the 6th house, this is a person who shines in their everyday life. The tasks that they do. This is a person who has the light bulb. If you think of the light bulb moment, that would be Leo in the 6th house. The 6th house is the house of processing. It is the house that deals with our everyday life. It deals with our ability to organize our life. It is our responsibilities, the things that we have to do, the things that are in our physical realm, physical world. And so with that said, you would definitely have some energy here of a person who kind of exuberant. You ever met somebody, you're like, how are you happy to do that? There's an enthusiasm about doing something, getting things done. This person might be really efficient at getting things done, especially if you notice that the person has any planets there that can be positive. Now, could you see a person that Leo, they want to shine at work though? So the 6th house is everyday life, and we're talking about the workplace, careers, 10th house. So you could also see a person, depending on other elements of the chart, who wants to shine. They want to be praised for what they did though. Yeah, you're like, all you did was go organize those files. Yes, but they want you to notice it and say, good job. Okay. Yes, all you did was this. Tell them good job. You did great, right? Because there's still an element of praise that needs to happen. Because the 5th house is going to be more self-involved. It's going to be more self-sufficient when it comes to confidence. But once we start taking Leo out of certain elements, we're going to start to see different layers of that. So, the person can be really good at something and they're going to shine when it comes to organizing or making everyone's life easier in some way. Maybe they even do it with a smile, but you do need to show them praise and that you show that you are appreciative of that, especially if someone has like Moon and Leo in the 6th house. Well, if they're doing things for you, they're going to you want to be acknowledged for that process and how long it took them. And those type of people might need that type of level of, praise. The 7th house, you're the Aquarius rising Leo. Well, there you learn to see the different attributes of people who can shine. They kind of open you up. They bring it out of you. They help you see. So Aquarius energy sometimes is so indulged in influencing the group. Like, I want everybody to think this way, or I think this way, so I have to share it, or I have this great innovative idea, or I think this. Like, sometimes some Aquariuses are just like, well, this is what I think. And it's a very fixed nature, and it's a very much like, well, you're either going to come around me and think what I think or whatever. It's that energy. But if you have Leo on the descendant, well, now you get to see, well, Leo wants to bring people in. It's not saying, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, there's a fixed nature to Leo, but there is still a kind of a more, again, if you think about Leo's ability to draw people in through warmth, through being comedic or being funny or being inviting or being cheerful. Depends on the Leos, different types of Leos. I know some hilarious Leos. I know some Leos that are just more jovial. I know some that are just more, they need attention. So it's different ones. But if you're thinking of it in that way, though, Leo is showing you how to get people in. Yeah, you want people to listen to you, but you maybe soften up how you say it. Or maybe you invite them in. Tell them something good about themselves. Get them in first in order for them to even understand what you're trying to say. Because sometimes you can go too far out where, people have these great ideas, but you're not connecting to people, or people don't feel invited in. They're like, well, you just want me to listen to you without even, and I feel like Leo is better with building those relationships with people. So Aquarius energy can sometimes notice that. And again, I have the Aquarius video where I talk about the opposite. So this would just be showing the Aquarius ascendant person how to engage or what they can receive from the Leo descendant person. And there's a video about the descendants if you're interested more in that. So Leo in the 8th house. Well, you need the same praise, you need the same attention as anyone else. However, in the eighth house, it becomes more internal. So when Leo is here, sometimes you can see a person who is not as open. There's a selectivity that I think sometimes can happen anyway. It's Scorpio. I was gonna say Virgo, but Virgo and Scorpio, different reasons though. Scorpio selectivity emotionally is I'm not investing emotionally in everybody and everything, which is sometimes we can say something different, differs from some of the other two water signs have a different approach, especially Pisces. But what we're going to see here is the person is selective, but they still need the same praise. They want the same, but they want it to be true. And so this is where you can see the person who's like, I need this attention from you, but it's certain people they want it from. So it's less about wanting attention from everybody and all this. And Leo in the eighth house becomes a little bit more about the person who does want to shine, who does want to be seen, but it's almost like they want to be seen for who they are, but they want you to go in the dark with them, especially if they have like a placement in the eighth house and they have a planet there and they have Leo. Like they want you to go find them. They want you to find the light in them. They want you to seek them out, or they want you to, it is very complex emotions in the eighth house in the first place. A lot of, in-depth feelings. And I have the whole video about the eighth house. So when Leo was there, it creates a very interesting thing because it's both a fixed sign, but we're now putting Leo in a house that is not about performance. The eighth house is not about performing. So now Leo is there saying, one person can be more introspective. There could be ways about them where they are a little bit more, they can occupy themselves a little bit easier when you have Leo in certain placements. So you have Leo in the 12th house, you have Leo in the 8th house. It can occupy itself a little bit better, okay? Maybe some other houses as well, because those houses are not really dealing with the attention. It's dealing with something that is a little bit more harder to see. And so Leo being there, sometimes if you see those people or you have Leo in the 8th house, it can be like wanting to uncover, you want something, but it's hard for you to openly express that's what you want. And sometimes it can make things a little bit tricky or hard, especially when it comes to relationships and things like that. But I think Leo is great for the person who does things because it's a part of what they're trying to embody, because it's not about performance. It's not just about showing. It's not like the 5th house Leo or the 5th house Leo. Okay. All right, so I'm back to finish this video 2 days later. So Leo in the 9th house. Well, when we put Leo in the 9th house, there's any cusp energy in the 9th, or there's Leo in the 9th. You're going to see the Leo energy that needs a little bit more free expression of beliefs. If someone had a really prominent Leo energy in the 9th house, you can see a person who gets attention for a certain belief system they have, or a person who's very forthcoming with what they think and what they different experiences that they've had. Leo here is gaining more experience. A lot of the confidence is coming from what they are encountering in their actual environment and through learning or through travel or things of that nature. So it's a little, when we take Leo out of the 1st and 5th house, we put it in 9th, it's getting further and further, right? And so when it gets further, the 9th house, as we know, those top houses becomes more about other people or experiences and things that are more worldly in view, right? So you could get a Leo energy when it's in the 9th house. You could have a person that is more aware of what they think and not just trying to just have other people listen to them, but there's a charisma there, perhaps. They get people to listen to them. There's a confident layer to Leo, and because of that, you put it in the 9th house, where we do sometimes see teacher, mentor energy. But because of that, it can be someone who can be a leader in regards to what they say. There's more of a charismatic energy that other people might start to believe what you believe. Now, Sag is really supposed to be in the 9th house, so Sagittarius is going to be more effective, obviously, in the 9th house. But Leo there, a person is more vocal about what they have done. It becomes more about them trying to engage also with the intellectual process, right? So it's less about performance. If Leo is heavily in someone's chart, 9th house, it's less about performance. It's more about this person wanting to be seen for their knowledge and their experiences and what they know. Sometimes you could have energy. Anytime we start getting 9th house, we could get a person who is, more wants to overdo it. Oh, anytime you get 9th house energy, anytime you get Jupiter, anytime you get Sagittarius energy, there could be a tendency or a problem with overdoing it. So being very careful as well, because that energy could overdo trying to get other people to believe and listen to them, or it leads to exaggeration or promising something that you can't deliver. Whereas with Sagittarius energy, it's supposed to be there, so it has more of an awareness of how to, you know, get that level of um, their beliefs down without needing the crowd. Sagittarius is not. It's not really trying. There's a conviction there. There's a level of Sagittarius being like, this is what I believe, this is my morals, or this is the truth. And again, there's different levels of Sagittarius people. So I'm not saying everyone's a spiritual guru or anyone's like everyone's this truth seeker, knowledgeable person. Some people are the more exaggerative, more you know, type of Sagittarius that constantly needs something going on in their life. So different people, depends on the person, but that's what you're going to notice more. Leo doesn't really belong there. So sometimes it could emanate into those types of attention needing tactics for what you think, and it can be a little bit overbearing. But on the positive, it typically will end up somebody that is charismatic in their approach. So what happens is it's less of I'm going to tell you what to believe or I'm going to ask you to believe this, but Leo energy as fixed can sometimes get a crowd of people. There's charisma there. But the difference is Sagittarius is not worrying about the crowd, whereas sometimes Leo energy is thriving off that popularity. And even when we put it in the ninth house, which is more about intellectualism, it's more about truth. It is pursuit of knowledge and your own moral conviction, direction, all of those things. We know the ninth house. We have a video for that. That's sometimes what you'll get. Now, Leo in the 10th house person is going to use their charm to get ahead. They will now, sometimes you can see a person who, because of their personality, because of the way they come off, they get to, you know, experience certain things in their career. You know, especially if you have, obviously, if you have 10th, Leo in the 10th house cusp, and see what house your midheaven is in. Especially if you use whole signs by default, you're going to see is that midheaven really connecting more to the 9th house or the 10th house. Some people's midheaven is actually in 11th house. That's a whole different conversation for another day. Anyway, all you need to know is Leo is it's a person who is meant to be seen and who ideally should take an opportunity to be seen and noticed. They're so used to Aquarius from the 4th house cusp. You're used to sharing perhaps with a group. Maybe you have a lot of siblings, or maybe you had to, you know, pay a lot of attention to what other people's needs were and kind of be more of that detach yourself a little bit from what you needed. But in your professional life, you actually do need things. You need attention, you need praise for what you do. And it doesn't mean you just show up to work, you just show up in life and everyone throws everything at you and throws money and throws accolades. No, you can still work hard, you still should work hard. But Leo in the 10th house, because sometimes you'll see a lot of people, they're not working where they're supposed to be working. They'll be like, yeah, I really wanted to do this, but I'm doing this. And I was like, oh yeah, you're not satisfied because you're going to feel more aligned when you're tapping into your midheaven that's already there. Public image, people are already going to see you for certain things, and if someone's going to see you for that, it's best that you use that to your advantage. Actually do the things that are relative to your chart, and you're going to start to see that, oh wow, this does work, this does match up. But yeah, Leo in the 10th house, or if you just have Leo placements, maybe your midheaven is actually Virgo. I mean, not Virgo, would it be Virgo? No, Leo, Cancer. You have a person who has Cancer as the midheaven, um, but they have Leo planets in the 10th house. But definitely, you need to be doing things that are maybe creative, using your skills, using your talents, using expression, right? Leo energy is expression. Whether we're talking about literally artistic, making things, we're talking about music, performance. So again, comedy is also comedy. Comedy, I might do a video one day. Comedy is interesting. It's not just the fire signs. I've been looking at some signs of some famous comedians actually. So it's interesting who shows up. Like there's a few famous Virgo comedians. It's interesting. But there's different types of comedians. There's, you know, the fiery Aries type of comedians. They're the more cerebral type of sarcastic type of comedian. So it depends. But point being, if you have Leo in the 10th house, you have to find ways. You're gonna shine. You're gonna need to shine. Whatever it is that you do, it's gonna be a skill, or it's going to be something that is particular to you. Maybe the best person doing something at your job, or you want to be the best. And by the best, sometimes you just have that person on the job that's like, they're just good at that thing. It doesn't always mean that they're good at everything. It means they're good at something and they get praised for it and they're known for it, and that you thrive off of that. And a lot of times people are afraid to get attention. Oh, am I being too egotistical? And yes, you can definitely see egotistical energy, you know, especially Leo energy can sometimes emanate ego. It depends on who you're dealing with. You could have too much pride. That's why I said the thing with exaggeration, the ninth house, of exaggerating things, of wanting praise so much that it could be the person who's charming as ever, but leading. Yeah, the ninth house sometimes can be religion or spirituality, like people who have a message and you have a following. You can see following through ninth or 11th house. But sometimes you can see that in the ninth house, you could have a person who is like so charismatic, you don't even realize they really aren't what they say they are. Now, again, that wouldn't be Leo traits by default. That could be like a person who's maybe that sun in Leo in the ninth house. But the sun is square Neptune and they have heavy Neptune in their Pisces rising. There's so many different combinations that can create certain things. So we don't want to get into all of that. But the 10th house, you know, you have to recognize that it's okay to shine. I tell people the North Node in Leo all the time. If you are a humble person and you know that you aren't trying to be egotistical or be self-centered, you're probably not going to come off as that. If you are a self-centered, selfish, egotistical person, then yeah, you might have to worry about how that's going to look. But some people don't care, and that's what they are. Leo in the 11th house, I think it's kind of self-explanatory. This person is typically going to shine when it comes to their networks, their groups. But the difference here is going to be, usually we're talking about connections. So ninth house is Leo's ideology. The people who are around Leo, there's a certain level of their, magnetism when it comes to speaking or sharing their beliefs or their truth or their experiences, or maybe just navigating and liking to be in different experiences, liking, enjoying, finding great joy in travel. Leo is there in the ninth house. If Leo is in the 11th house, you gain from popularity, probably from groups. You gain popularity. You attract people who might even be popular. You like being a part of a popular group. You like being a part of people who shine, who maybe there is some level of fame. There is some level of success attached to the organizations or the groups, the people that you associate yourself with. If we talk about the friendship lens of the 11th house, you just perhaps like friends who are engaging, outgoing, funny, open down to do different things. That might be the Leo energy there. Like you might prefer people who have that, the sign on the cusp of your 11th house is important whether you have empty houses or not, because some people will have a sign on the cusp using Placidus, but the planets in there are a different sign. But you still should look at what's on the cusp, because that can tell you the type of people you like to be around. So we're not talking about the third house of our locality, our siblings, and people we're, in close proximity to, or the one-to-one relationships from the 7th house. The 11th house are clubs, groups, organizations. Sometimes you can even see work through there. Even though 11th house is not about work, you can see if somebody works for an organization. You see that through the 11th house. If someone's a part of a group, if they create groups, if they have presence in social society. You have presence in society. You have presence in society or presence in your community. You're going to see that through the 11th house. And the cusp can sometimes help us understand that as well. So like you can gain and get from the 11th house. And so Leo being there can mean attention, shine. People notice you within those settings, especially if you have Leo in that house as well. Now, again, we would have to look at the actual planet, what's in there. I have an 11th house video where I go through all the planets. So it depends on what's in there, right? So again, this is a general through the houses video. Sometimes can need attention within groups. You know, some people just go into a group like, I'm just going to this meeting, or I'm just going on here, or I'm just going in this building, or I'm just going in this Zoom meeting. I'm just going in here unassumed just to get this thing done. But Leo energy, it has maybe a command over the group, but it's not a forceful command. It's not a guiding it, where you might see have Capricorn energy where it comes into a group and it's like telling everybody, all right, we're going to do this, you can do this, you can do that, delegating. Leo delegates in a very subtle way, but Leo does stuff. When Leo's in charge, you can definitely see that Leo can get people to get things done. They do it through their personal relationships with people. They do it through a level of joy. And again, a lot of things, everything Leo does, they want it to be grand. So if you are in a group organization that throws parties or events, Leo, a person that has Leo in the 11th house or Leo energy that's really strong, they're going to be good at it because they're going to want it to be seen and noticed and to shine. Now, Leo in the 12th house. You Leo in the 12th house. So you're Virgo rising. All right. Unless you have one of those weird situations where, like, some people, if you're using Placidus, sometimes you can have more than one sign in there in that 12th house. Well, Leo, you hide a lot of your abilities behind the scenes. It might take a while for you to feel confident. Remember, Leo is confidence. So there's a part of you that does want acknowledgement for what you do. You want shine for what you do. You want praise for what you do. But sometimes it can be behind the scenes. Because the 12th house can be things that we don't really bring to the surface. Because there are things that don't always, everything does not need to be brought to the surface. Um, Trust me, there's things that it's like, I'm never going to talk on that. I know things, but I'm not going to bring that out because, it's, especially from a spiritual lens, there's things sometimes that I feel like we're messaged to share with other people. And sometimes there's things where it's like, I don't even know how to quite explain this to other people or if people would listen. So spiritually, those, some of you guys know what I'm talking about. When it comes to just like getting insight, getting certain information about the world or universal, just like universalism or just understanding like ancient knowledge and just whatever. Point being, if you have Leo there, you decide you might have more under the scenes, but it's really up to you what you decide to bring out. Sometimes Leo in the 12th house people don't really believe that what they're good at should even come out. You keep it to yourself. But at the same time, Leo has to shine. Leo energy has to be noticed, acknowledged, and brought out. And we're not always talking about from an ego place. You have Leo in the 12th house. You are conscious of wanting, if you're Virgo rising especially, you're conscious of wanting to be humble. So you are actually, you don't like excessive attention. You don't like people who are over the top. That kind of bothers you because it's something that you hide from yourself. And the 12th house is what we hide from ourselves. So of course we're not going to like that when we see it in other people. And so because you don't like that, you don't, it's not that you don't like praise, it's that it's uncomfortable. You're not sure how to accept it because you're coming from a place of humility. That's really what that's about. Virgo risings, Virgo, or any energy in the 12th house that's more humble. Like I have Virgo and Leo in my 12th house. So but with Leo being there, it does mean you have to bring yourself out. Your confidence has to come out at some point, or you are going to feel stifled. All right. When people talk about, oh, well, insecurities rising and things like that. Well, sometimes insecurities rise because you have a sense of what you are, but it's something locked up. And so you start to believe that you can't do something, but you really just haven't tried to do it. Right. If we know that Leo energy, wherever it goes, it's shining. We see that. And by shining, it does not mean you have to be the top of the top. It simply means you are letting something be seen. And so when you have Leo in the 12th house, there's always something hidden that it's a gem that you probably need to share in some way, in some regard. Okay, you have to bring yourself out. There's things you do in private. There's things that you do that are creative. There's ideas that you have. You have so many creative ideas, especially if you're Mercury in that 12th house and that Leo. But sometimes it's hard to bring it out. Mercury and Leo, what else? Gemini, Aquarius, Mercury and Aquarius in the 12th house has some crazy ideas. Not crazy, but like you have probably really innovative ideas that you think nobody in society is going to accept this idea. You're a writer or you're someone that has some type of like new invention, like something that you would want to bring out. You want other people to see it, but you're like, nobody. That's the thing with the 12th house. It's so personalized, but it is a gift that we're supposed to give back to others. The 12th house is one of those top houses of the chart. All the top houses are about other people and our interaction or engagement with them. All the houses. So even though the 12th house, because remember the 12th house, even when you're collected, you're connected to the, if you're connected to the collective consciousness, if you're connected to spirituality, you're not really alone. You're drawn on, right? You're drawn on the energy of the universe. You're not alone, right? So that's why spirituality can be seen in the 12th house. Open spirituality seen through the 9th house. So with that said, of you Leo in the 12th house, it's very important to really just raise your confidence up by acknowledging the thing that you're good at and allowing yourself to shine in that. Allow yourself to accept. This is Virgo risings, period, because Virgo risings have this Leo in the 12th house. Allow yourself to accept compliments. That's something Virgo risings don't do. Virgo and Virgo risings, it's always like a Pisces perhaps to the opposite sign, but there's definitely this like, oh yeah, there's always an excuse for why you did something well. Like you just don't want to accept it. Just accept it. Thank you. Say thank you. Be gracious. But accept the compliment. Realize it's real. And that's a lot of times what's happening with that 12. Maybe I'm going a little bit more of the 12th, of the Leo and the 12th, because I really, really have experienced it. But for those of you who have this placement, it's not people ask about confidence. You have to get, you have to bring things out first. You have to believe that what you have and what you do is good. You can't, the problem is too many people want to do it in reverse. You want to do something. We all need acknowledgement. First of all of us need acknowledgement and validation in some form in this life. If you're going to be in the physical world, yes, you care about people like what you do. But the point I'm saying is the first step is doing it and saying, wow, I just did something. That's good. You have to understand that. And then the people will follow. You can't first come out with something waiting for everybody. Oh, do they like it? Did they like it? Did they like it? Yes, and I'm not, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong. I'm saying this, nothing wrong with getting acknowledgement and validation. And we all need it in different forms, in different ways. But the point is that the first step for you guys is going to be believing that what you do and what you are is good enough, and doing something that you always wanted to do, or something that you're good at, or something that you're hiding. If a lot of you, like I said, my spirituality journey of like, I've always done this. This is not new for me at all. I've done this since I was a teenager, and I've been interested in all this stuff. I've been reading about astrology since I was a kid. But doing it and putting out platforms and talking to people that I don't know about spirituality and things like that, I had to start to like, wait, I do know this, let me share it. You see what I'm saying? You don't have to do it through astrology or spirituality, but whatever it is that you are, that you're good at, if you're a singer, if you're a dancer, if you're just good at people skills, people underestimate that all the time. They're like, I don't know what I'm good at. Like, but you're charming. People like you. You have magnetism. Everybody does not have that. That is a skill that you can use. So